Mm. And so this life, the human experience, holds the most incredible possibility to remember divinity, to remember the glory of God in the heart. And yet the play of life plays as an experience of being undone, of being unraveled. In a way, we maybe could say being taken apart. And the protection and the sense of me is constantly trying to fill the space and put everything back together again. Not realizing that the great glory is, the grace is in the being undone, in the being taken apart, in the releasing of protections, in the illuminating of the discordance. That exactly what the mind doesn't want is the grace that carries us into the remembrance of divinity. The part that can be tricky is that we cannot tell the mind and have the mind understand, because the mechanism that we call the mind is itself protection, is itself like a program that is limited. The limitation is that it is consciousness identified at a singular point, and therefore the consciousness is not knowing all of itself. So the mind and the me is always going to feel limitation. And this is why the sense of the personal, the me and mine, plays out. And really this unfolding is the seeing through of that whole program, that whole complex, and the remembrance of simplicity, the remembrance of what we have always been before we imagined and have thought ourselves into the conundrum of the human condition. The only way that we come to the remembrance, the allowance, the natural allowance and acceptance is as we remember the being that is the true essence of all beings, as we remember the heart, as we remember the love, the openness, the naturalness of the freedom that we are in truth. As we can feel this remembrance, it creates an impetus to want to go deeper and clearer. And that impetus is a natural pull of the divine calling itself into itself. It is the call of the heart to remember you are not a personal heart. You are the divine heart. You are the heart of wholeness. You are one with the glory of God, the Mother. That the true essence nature is divine wholeness. And the whole of the lived experience is alive with the possibility of this remembrance, the remembrance of love that is without condition. And what love is, in truth, it's never an exchange. It never belongs to anyone. Love in its purity is really just total openness, purity, a transparency, an honesty, a truth. What love is in its natural, unfettered state, we could say, is simplicity. It is divinity. It is God, the glory. It is perfect wholeness, right? Already. So the thing is that we don't have to work hard to come to wholeness. We don't have to work hard to make wholeness whole. We don't have to work hard to make purity pure. We don't have to work hard to make divinity divine. Wholeness, divinity, is already utterly whole, divine, pure. The heart is already absolutely full with its knowing of pure, unconditional love, perfect love. The quest of a human life is to remember and attune to the remembrance that this is what we are, and that we are just thinking ourselves away from God. We're thinking ourselves away from the glory, but we are never actually away from God. We're never away from the true heart of being, the divine heart. We're never, ever apart. And so as these words come, it is not to try to understand the words. It's not to take the words as any kind of instruction, but it is just to notice what happens inside, we could say, your heart, with what happens inside your being, your presence, what happens in your nervous system as these words come. And it's to notice where there's a sense of a stirring and aliveness that feels like a yes, that feels like recognition. This is where you already know this truth. These words are your words. These words are your heart speaking to you. These words are your consciousness speaking to you to say, remember that you are not limited at the singular point of the me and the character. You are not limited. You are the unlimited, impersonal glory. You are the brilliance and the radiance of the wide open, infinite heart of God. And everything is conspiring as a play of life for this to be remembered in your heart, in the sense of your personal heart, and shift the sense of personal heart that feels like it can open and close and have moods and emotions, that can suffer and feel misery and sorrow. That this is about your heart awakening out of the dream of separation and remembering the infinite, impersonal, unlimited, timeless being that you already are, because the heart knows this truth. The heart already knows this truth. And so that is why, as these words come, it is just to feel where the heart is stirred. Where the heart is stirred, there's like a true confirmation that happens, which is a remembrance. It's not new information. It's not telling you something that you don't already know. It's bringing alive and pointing to the invitation to illuminate the knowing in your own heart and shine as the radiance of who you are in truth. Stop turning down the dimmer switch. Stop playing small. Step in this moment back into the remembrance of your largesse, your infinite unboundedness, and shine as the radiance of who you truly are. Let go of the story of limitation, of me and mine. Let go of the story of lack, of deficiency, of not enough, unlovable, and open to the love that you are, where the heart already knows this love. Now, one of the curious things is that where we think there is a lack, where we think love is missing, is actually exactly where we know perfect love. Because where we are longing for love, because the mind imagines love is missing, where we are longing for love is exactly where we know the love that we are. So where there is a longing for love, this is one of the greatest clues that we are given. We're longing for love. We're longing to know this love, to love and be loved. Where it gets a little tricky is that we have learned that that love is outside of us and that we have to behave in a certain way in order to receive that love. We have learned that there are certain ways that we have to behave and show up in order to feel love. We have forgotten that we are the love, and we've taken on these conditionings and these learned ways of being, and we've created like a needs met structure, like a conditioned way of being, which says stay small because then you'll receive love. Because we learned that to behave in these certain limited ways was how we felt connected, how we felt what we believed was love, which was never really the true full blast of radiance of perfect love. But we have come to learn a way of accepting limitation and moving in limitation and believing that we have to act out certain patterns in order to feel connected, really in order to feel validated, acknowledged, seen. And really the human life can end up being like a stressful, striving, efforting to be seen and acknowledged in all of these ways that we learned was love. And actually, it's not even truly love. So we've learned to behave in these ways to receive a half-baked cookie. Now, some people like half-baked cookies. But what we can assure you here is that there is a crunchy goodness and a melt in your mouth deliciousness when you really open to the fullness of the perfect love that you are. We will leave the half-baked cookies behind when we let go of the learned experience that this is how love is. When we remember what love truly is, when we start to feel the presence of love in our own functioning, the love that the heart knows. Another clue of this is that whatever relationships we have in our life, however lovely they are, however wonderful our friendships and companionships, however good or kind or loving our families might be or might not be, it doesn't really matter. But we have learned to settle for an idea of love instead of remembering the heart that knows love. Now, another clue is that we're always disappointed with love on the external in some way, right? Even if our relationships are gorgeous, there can always be this little piece in the heart that says, yeah, but it's not that. It's not that. And it doesn't really matter if we keep striving for some kind of perfect relationship, striving to make relational dynamics with our family, with our partners, with our friends. As much as we strive to make those relationships perfect, until the relationship with yourself, your true self, remembers union, remembers love, then all of the relationships will still feel deficient, because they will be a reflection of your belief in your own deficiency. They will be a reflection of your belief that there's something lacking in you, and your relationships will reflect that lack to you, because instead of looking for wholeness within you, you're looking for someone else to be the missing piece of the puzzle. Once we come to realize that all of the puzzle pieces are within our own functioning, and when we turn only to ourselves to discover what's missing, when we turn to the presence of being, when we turn to our own heart, we could say when we turn inside out and we open inside, we open to our inner functioning, we open to the inner presence, we open to the true heart, that our sense of heart reveals the infinite, unbounded heart of love. We come to a remembrance of a sense of perfect love, of wholeness, of freedom. It's really a deep relaxation out of all the tension and striving, out of the contraction and holding, of trying to take a certain kind of shape. In a way, what it's like in the human conditioned life, it's like always trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Always. You're always trying to fit yourself, take a shape, make your shape fit. You assess the situation, and then you take on whatever you think you need to be, however you need to behave, whatever you need to say, in order to be accepted, seen, to fit in, to feel like there's a belonging. And yet, even still, somehow there's always a sense of not quite getting there. This can bring a feeling of deep, deep aloneness, like an existential aloneness. And that is because we have to meet ourselves, the true self. We have to meet our innermost heart of being in the utter wilderness of the presence of the great landscape of consciousness, which is right here in the presence of now. We have to meet it solo. We have to meet it in such openness, such natural humility, a transparency, an honesty, where we let go of our protections. We let go of the conditionings. We let go of the persona in our own functioning with our own self. And this is the curious thing, is that the one that we are the most dishonest with is our own self. And so in a way, this whole process that gets called awakening is really an awakening to honesty. Because if we are not awake to honesty, how can we know truth? How can we possibly know truth? And it is an awakening, an unraveling. It's about being undone. And what is being undone are all of the ways that we protect, and in truth, all of the ways that we are dishonest with ourselves, all of the ways that we move within a certain kind of pretense within our own functioning. Now that pretense is innocent in a certain way. Of course, it's innocent because we have learned to protect. We've learned to function within these needs met structures. We've learned that we are not good, that somehow there is something wrong with me. But it's a great misunderstanding. It is not the truth. And so all of life that is undoing us is undoing the protections. It's undoing the conditionings. It's undoing all of the great misunderstanding, all of the misconceptions that we have taken on, all of the beliefs that we are holding on to. And life itself is undoing us, undoing everything that keeps us from the remembrance of God, the remembrance of love that is without condition, the remembrance of our own purity, our own divinity, the remembrance of the wholeness that we are in truth, that the heart is in truth. So we are being invited constantly to come to the presence of being and to notice, where are you alive? Where are you alive in a sense of freedom, where you're not trying to please anyone, behave in a certain way to get something, where there's no kind of sense of selfish gain, where you are absolutely freely yourself? Because when you are freely yourself, you are in the remembrance of the love that you are. You are in the remembrance of the being that you are. Now, some beings, many beings will say, well, in nature, there is that feeling. Because nature, of course, is a perfect reflection of true nature. When we watch nature, when we rest in the stillness and the silence of being, and we watch nature, we are watching the great guru that shows us the natural cycles and processes of nature, shows us how the flow of life flows and how we are not to be attached to anything, because life itself is beyond and before birth and death. Life itself is an eternal life. It is a vitality that just keeps living itself. It is never diminished. It is a radiance, a luminosity, and a wholeness that is never ever diminished, despite the appearances, right? That we just keep cycling as life, that life keeps cycling, not affected by the births of spring or the deaths of the fall and the winter, right? Just keep cycling, because life itself is a glorious flow of vitality. It is the flow of devotion. It is a flow of surrender. And that is why, if the heart is touched by devotion, if the heart is touched by surrender, then to fall into that flow of devotion, that flow of surrender, is to fall into the natural flow of life, surrendering into itself, never holding a position, never needing anything, just in a constant surrender into itself, in utter devotion, as love, in love with love, just loving and letting go into love, into love, into love, because there is nothing else for love to move in but its own flow of devotion to itself. And the more that we come into alignment with this flow of devotion, this flow of surrender, and just keep letting go into being the flow of life, an open, receptive flow of life, we start to feel the naturalness of being undone, being untangled, unraveled from the conditions and the protections. We start to feel a truth in the ways that life moves, that whatever happens in the play of life, it is never against this flow into freedom, that the mind doesn't like certain things that happen in life, but that it is when we come to an equanimity where we are not moving from the mind that is addicted to the idea of pleasure and excuse me, trying to keep pain away. It's like a cycle of attachment and aversion. We're moving with attachment or aversion in our functioning. We're in the cycle of cause and effect, and we're in a belief in the mind that our actions have an effect. And we are being invited to collapse the cycle of cause and effect at its true cause. And its true cause is the presence of being. The true cause is causeless, we could say, that we collapse the whole cycle of cause and effect at the cause, at its origin, in the presence, where there is no past, no future, no me and mine, just a felt sense of being, just presence itself, present to itself, which is the wide open heart that just is. And this is where the knowing is, the knowing of who you are in truth. Before you imagined yourself to be someone, before the identification happened and this story of me took hold, the story of the personal, a story of limitation, a play of karma, a play of cause and effect, which is essentially a cycle of misery. Because if you're constantly trying to keep pain and suffering and stress away so that you can be feeling pleasure, you're really in a constant state of tension always, a constant state of protection where you're keeping yourself protected from what you don't want and then experiencing as a me what you think you do want, but you're never really in openness. Even when you're getting what you think you want, there's a certain relaxation, but you're still not in total openness. True openness is the openness of being, where you are in remembrance of the presence that is ever present, omnipresent. It's the felt sense of being boundless, being everywhere, being yourself, being natural, just being your natural self. We cannot give instructions or ideas to the mind of what this looks like. But to know yourself is an unquestionable recognition. It's a moment of remembrance where the being itself is in remembrance of itself. Presence itself is present to itself. And it's so clear that there is no tension. And in the lack of tension and contraction, limitation, there is just openness. And in that openness, the relaxation brings a sense of being yourself, of being free from the mind, being free from the struggle, just simply being yourself. In the stillness, in the silence, in the natural presence of being. Here you are. There is nothing to do. There is nothing to understand. As the words come, it is a recognition, a remembrance in the heart where the being itself remembers, oh, this is the truth. This is who I am. This is natural. This is easy, right? It's a very simple openness, still and natural, silent and free. So the pointing is to the felt sense, I am. I am always I. that the I never identifies with the story. The I never identifies at a singular point. The I itself is wholeness. The I itself is God. And the I am presence is always the I that is always free. So to discover, what is this I? Who am I? We hear this question as a very well-known, profound inquiry question. But it takes the most extraordinary maturity to actually recognize what this question is pointing to. And when that maturity is here, as the ripening happens, just the simple asking of this question delivers us right into the I am. I am always I. No matter what is playing on the surface of life, no matter what the name is, no matter what your story is, the roles that you play, you are always the I that is unidentified and free. So when we come to feel the sense I am here now, just this felt sense of presence, of being. I am. Before the I identifies with the thought that says, I am this, I am that. Before identification, the I just is. And in the sense of the I am presence, we can naturally remember the I that just is. Just simply being here natural. It is not the mind that confirms this. So it is to listen and receive all that is being shared, not with the ears hearing, not with the mind trying to understand, but with the sense of true listening. True listening is open receptivity. True listening is openly receiving what is coming forward as words and attuning to where there is recognition, attuning to your own remembrance, attuning to the I, the frequency of I. I. To just rest here, we start to notice that even if we start off feeling I am the body, I am the mind, even if the sense I am starts off to feel like the body, the person, that when we just rest here, I am. What is this I that I am? What is this I that I am that is here now, timeless and free? The sense of identification with the body starts to feel like it expands. I, just presence, just I am presence. Start to notice that the sense of presence is boundless. It is not limited within the constraints of the physical body. It's not limited by the skin and the bones and the systems. That the sense of presence is everywhere. is unbounded. The sense of presence is not limited in any way. So the sense of expansion is, it feels like an expansion out of the person, but it's really a remembrance of the expanded, infinite, boundless being that you've always been, because it's the dropping of the person and the personal that just disappears in the felt sense of presence. And as the sense of the person and the personal falls away, there's like an aliveness in the presence, an aliveness in the presence, which is everywhere. The aliveness in the presence is everywhere. It's totally free. And you can feel the aliveness of this presence that is everywhere. You can feel that it is everywhere in the environment, all around you, as you have felt yourself to be, the person, the body. It's also inside you. It's inside and it's outside. It's not limited by the skin and the bones and the systems. It's not limited by the word body, and it's not limited by the word mind. That this sense of presence is everywhere. That the actual sense of presence is unlimited and free. And you can feel the expansiveness, the natural boundlessness of this presence. You can feel it as yourself. It doesn't feel like it's different to the feeling of yourself. It feels the same as you've always felt. And yet you feel more relaxed and open, wider, more expansive. You can be aware of the thoughts that come and go. You can be aware of the body, the physicality. And yet you are somehow independent of the mind and the thoughts. And you are independent of the physical body. You are aware and witnessing from a much wider, more expansive stance. You're witnessing from everywhere. You are unbounded and free. And you can feel the independence of the presence that you are. And feel that you are not touched or disturbed by whatever is happening in the moving, changing. That the presence that is aware and witnessing is not disturbed by anything that is moving and changing, not disturbed by thoughts that come and go like clouds in the sky, not disturbed by sense perception that tries to fragment the moment, but you are the awareness of sense perception that can just remain wide open, receptive. In a way, this is the true listening. It's an open receptivity where the presence itself is openly receiving a transmission of its own presence. And when presence is present to itself, the transmission is a resonance of remembrance. And you are almost as if vibrating at a resonance, a frequency of remembrance. And this frequency of remembrance is not at a singular point. The resonance of remembrance is like a whole wide open field. It's everywhere. The aliveness is everywhere, resonating within itself, remembering itself as itself, but with absolutely no identification with the mind or body, just resonating in openness, in an equanimity and sense of being yourself, just being yourself. But you are not the mind, the story, the name, the roles, the persona, the character. You are just the wide open presence that is simple and free. You are yourself here now. And the heart knows this. The heart knows and remembers this sense of freedom, this sense of innocence, the sense of goodness, purity, divinity that you are, that you have always been good. You have never been anything other than pure, essential goodness. So right before the belief that I am bad, I am not good enough, I am unworthy, I have done something wrong, I am lacking and deficient, right before the thoughts and the beliefs that create a sense of separation and protection is this wide open remembrance of utter goodness, that you are goodness. You are good. You are good with no opposite. You are pure with no opposite. You have never been tainted or disturbed or divided in any way. You have always been radiantly shining as love. And here is the remembrance of the love that you are. And that the love that you are is not dependent upon anything or anyone. That the love that you are is the remembrance in your own heart of your own freedom, of your own true essence nature. That you are the birthless, deathless, timeless one. You are the one that you have been searching for. That the one you are searching for is not outside of you. No matter what the play of the world tells you, the one that you are searching for, the one that will love you and never leave you, the one that will always be here for you, the one that is essential natural happiness and joy, the one that you are longing to know, to meet, to be received by, is here right now. It is your very own self. It is the wideness of your very own heart, fully facing itself in total honesty, open and free. To face yourself, to face yourself in total openness, in total honesty, to not deny any part of you, to accept yourself just as you are here now, without the story of deficiency creating a sense of lack, that you can receive yourself and remember your wholeness, that the story of deficiency or lack is just a story. It's made of nothing. When believed in, it feels like something and somebody, but when it is not believed in, there's nothing here. There's nothing here at all. There is utter freedom. And you are fully yourself. The I is always I. Always whole. Always glorious. Always radiantly free and shining in the wholeness of the knowing of itself. And so true knowledge, pure knowledge, is just to know yourself. It's not about learning things on the surface of life. It is about remembering yourself and unlearning all of the ways that we limit and play out a story of lack and limitation. And yes, as we refine and deepen into this remembrance, there is work that has to happen. And what we call the work is the refinement, where we meet the residues of our personality and our protections, where we meet the residues in the play of life and we receive it all, transmute it all, alchemize everything into the remembrance of one essential nature. We alchemize everything into the remembrance of one, the glory. So this is what is happening. But we have to come to the fineness, the fine frequency of remembrance, so that we can let go of the denser frequencies of mind and physical body that we have learned to identify with, where we can witness the mind and the thoughts that come and go, and we can witness the body, physicality, the physiology. We can witness it as a system, and we can see it as the witness and recognize that we are not the physical body. That is not the full story. That we can feel the subtle body, the energy body, which in truth is the wide open flow of pure consciousness. So we start to feel the universal consciousness as our true body, when we can feel the subtle resonance of the expanded field. We start to realize, I am not the physical body. I am a wide open field. The true body is this field of consciousness. The true body is a flowing field of intelligence. So we could call it the body of intelligence, or a body of awareness. And this body of intelligence starts to remember itself and refine itself and remember itself as a body of light. It starts to remember its finer and finer frequencies as light, as just resonant light, that what we are is resonant light, radiance, right? We are radiance, divine radiance, the remembrance of divinity. And the remembrance of divinity is not someone remembering divinity. It is consciousness itself remembering its divinity before it started to move as consciousness. We find in the light of consciousness, we find the light of awareness that is aware of consciousness. And the light of awareness is the divine light. So we are opening to the divine light that gives light to awareness, that gives light to consciousness, that we are not the play of life, that we are the light in it all. We're coming to the remembrance of being divine light. This is why we say Jai Ma, because Ma is the divine light. Ma is not someone. Ma is the integral whole, where Shiva and Shakti are one in the heart, and the remembrance of wholeness is the great remembrance of the Atman, of union in the heart as one. Integral wholeness is the celebration of the remembrance of divine light. The Jai that we remember in absolute celebration when we prostrate in pure devotion in the Om, when we give ourselves to the Om, when we give ourselves to the pure awareness, when we give ourselves to Shiva, when we give ourselves to Shakti, and we remember in the pure awareness, the Shiva nature, where we remember the pure awareness, and we open to be the open receptivity of the flow of life that is the flow of Shakti Ma. We receive the flow of Shakti as the awareness of it all. This integration and refinement naturally happens. A rebalancing happens in the heart, the remembrance that we are Shiva Shakti as one, right? We open as pure awareness and remember the true nature, and the heart opens to the flow of life, and we remember the deep silent peace and the dynamic flow is one flow, one wholeness, and the integral wholeness is Ma. And this is the celebration of the Jai Ma, is the celebration of the victory, of the remembrance of the divine light that we are, the perfect love that we are, the purity, the divinity that we are in true nature. And so this is what the glorious flow of life is all about. It's a divine Leela. It's a play. It's not reality. Reality is the untouched knowing, where you are the deep silent being, the alive remembrance of the flow of creative intelligence. And as the creative intelligence flows within itself, that creativity flowing within itself is a flow of divine Shakti. And Shakti is flowing as a whole flow of the appearance of life, flowing to create a reflection so that we have the incredible grace of receiving a reflection of all of our blind spots, conditionings, and protections, so that we may receive all of the places and receive them in love, receive all of ourself in total presence of love, so that we can really remember the wholeness, face ourselves in total honesty, where we're not pushing away parts of ourselves that we believe are deficient and lacking, that are somehow not enough and unlovable, that we can welcome all that we are in the presence of love, in the presence of integral wholeness. We can open and truly flower, truly blossom and shine as a heart that is just full of the remembrance of radiance. This is what this life is for. In a way, the flow of life is a promise, it's a clue, and a constant cue to remember who we are in truth. That what is happening as the flow of life is the great undoing, it's the great unraveling, the great untangling, and it is absolutely counterintuitive to what we have learned. So this is why we would say that everything that the me doesn't want is exactly the flow of grace that brings you to freedom. And so it is to meet with such openness and kindness and patience everything that the me doesn't want, everything the me says, no, not this. Don't let this be happening. Don't let this be. That this is the graced opportunity where life is offering us a possibility of meeting what the me doesn't want with openness that says, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, this, with such an honesty, such an openness, that we are unraveled in the presence of being humbled by life into the remembrance of being eternal life. That where we say, not this, we open to say, okay, this in presence. Okay, this. And as we open to say, okay, this is divine will, this is what is happening. May I meet every thread of resistance as an opportunity to know myself more deeply. May I meet every thread of resistance every fear, every stress, every anxiety, every resistance. May I meet all of these places of myself so that I can come to a greater intimacy with myself through this situation, through this circumstance. Can I use this circumstance in total openness to come deeper into the remembrance and out of protection? Can I say yes to God? Can I say yes to love, knowing that in one, this all has to be the same? Can I open to the possibility of such a profound surrender? Can I open to the possibility of such a remembrance in the heart, right? So these words are speaking for every heart and everything that every heart is facing right now with such tenderness and such compassion and such kind holding, right? Of can we meet the tenderness of what we want to resist? Can we meet in such tenderness what feels hard in our human life? Can we meet it with a patience and a kindness and an openness that says, okay, this, this. If this is what you are giving me, then I will say yes. I will say yes to this in order to know you, because anything that we resist is the barrier between the sense of me and God, right? It's what dissolves the sense of me and God, me and love, right? We meet in these tender places, the seeming edges where we can open and say, can I meet this so that I may know myself as you, where I may know that we are one, that I may know in absolute direct experience that there is no division here, that there is only love, only God. May I open to what you are giving me here so that I may know you and this heart can remember fullness, love, divinity, right? So as these words come, notice what is stirred, what is tender, what is shaken, what is alive, what is beautiful, right? What is beautiful when it is recognized as grace and not as suffering? What is beautiful when we can stay open in the face of what the me says no to? Can we include in our tenderness the me is resistant here? There is fear here. There's a feeling of I don't know how to live through this, right? There's a feeling of I don't know how to do this. I don't know. Because here the surrender, here a sense of devoted trust in the glory, in God, in the Mother, in wholeness, that we let go of feeling like I'm the one that has to know how to do this, that I'm the one that needs to do this, that we let go into being and we are carried deeper into that whatever we face, we step through. It's like a constant kind of initiation where we're being asked to surrender and be the remembrance of a living submission that says, I do not know. In the sense of the personal, I have no idea how to live this, how to be with this, how to stay open when my heart wants to close in fear, in anger, in suffering, in stress, right? Whatever it is. Can we stay open as openness? How do we stay open as openness? We stay open as openness by remembering that openness never closes. Being never shifts or changes. The awareness is always aware, open and free, right? So it's like we remain and rest as Shiva. We rest in the remembrance of Shiva nature, pure awareness, absolute freedom, as the laser, the brilliance of the awareness that never wavers, as the dance of Shakti life dances all around us, right? Giving us her all, Kali Ma, giving us her all. In all of her aspects, she dances in all of her aspects, showing us, revealing, and yet somehow in all of it supporting us. She is abundance. She is the reflection of love. She is the reflection of that which is never broken, the infinite, unbounded. She is in life, in her flow of Shakti. She is the reflection in all her aspects of our own wholeness in whatever feels to be divided, right? So we meet all of her faces. The dance of the Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Radha, Sita. We meet all of these aspects, all of these faces. Akalendeshwari is coming forward. She who is never not broken is Akalendeshwari. She who reminds us through her willingness to be so broken open of our infinite, unbounded, never not brokenness, right? That we, in our brokenness, remember our infinity, that we are supposed to be cracked open in our human experience, that we are supposed to have fierceness, that we're supposed to have heartbreak, but yet remember perfect love, right? All of these aspects dance. They dance to remind us that in the whole play, the divine Leela, every aspect is a radiant facet of one brilliance, right? Every aspect, even the ones that seem to be hard and broken, all of the play of life in the Leela, every aspect is a facet of a divine wholeness that is ever luminous and brilliant. And when we meet all of the play as the awareness of it in the remembrance of our Shiva nature, we start to rebalance within the sense of my heart, the remembrance of the infinite heart, and we rebalance out all of the discordance into the remembrance of union. This is the refinement. And we bring this remembrance where the heart is the remembrance that Shiva and Shakti are one, right? That we have Radhe Krishna as one, Sita Ram as one in the heart. And the integral whole is divine wholeness, is the Jaima, the celebration of that which has never ever been divided. So we meet ourselves in all of these aspects, in the undivided true nature, even in the appearance of division, right? We are being given everything that we need in the play of life in order to remember divinity, divine wholeness. So the great unraveling is an invitation into the natural flow of surrender. As we, let's say, open to be the flow of surrender, life in constant surrender, eternal surrender into itself, we meet the wholeness that is ever whole, that has never been divided, can never be divided, and is the remembrance in every heart of the eternal wholeness, which is a fullness of perfect love, a sense of plenitude, a natural simplicity, and a deep, unwavering peace in the heart. This is what we are being invited into in the play of life, when we allow life to be an intelligence that unravels us, and that everything that we feel that we do not want is exactly the grace that is humbling us out of ego patterns of protection, out of the story of lack and deficiency, and actually carrying us with great kindness and love to the remembrance of divinity, the remembrance of the One, the glory that is shining in every heart, that we are being invited to remember. So we could pray. We could pray for devotion, for pure devotion, that we can be so pure in our devotion, that we are the flow of life in total devotion to itself. We are the flow of surrender, just surrendering into itself. And what that looks like in our human experience is that we just keep saying yes. Yes to this truth. Yes to life. Yes to freedom. Yes to holiness. Yes to God, to the Mother, to the glory. We just are resonating as a holy yes, a wholehearted holy yes to divinity, to being carried, to not knowing how, and yet having the openness and willingness to remember. And that is our strength. That is our true strength, is to be humbled into the absolute not knowing, where we find strength in our Shiva nature, being the pure awareness. We find true strength in the remembrance of what is never ever detached or disturbed, what is never ever wavering in the face of life. And in this, we come to the remembrance of the integral wholeness that is divine light. Jai Ma. Illuminate the darkness and fill us with your light. Illuminate the darkness and fill us with your light, Ma. So the darkness of the Shadowlands is illuminated by the remembrance of divine light. And the recognition is that the Shadowlands of ego protection and separation have never ever been anything other than the same landscape of divine wholeness. So as we illuminate the seeming darkness and we are filled with the remembrance of light, we find a complete wholeness and oneness in all that we are, that there is not a single fiber of what we are that is left out of this all-inclusive naturalness, right? So here we are in remembrance. Wherever we are in the landscape, wherever the remembrance is alive in your heart as a resonance of remembrance, then just here you are. Here you are, right now. I am always I. I am always I.